Hi, and welcome back. In this demo, I'm going to discuss the insert select statement in SQL. I'm going to show you how to compose select insert statements and also walk you through some good examples. So without any further ado, let's get started. So in a nutshell, insert statements or insert into statements will allow you to insert data or values into uh, pre-created tables. So in this demo, I'm going to cover two main topics. The first one is insertion of data in a created table. The second one is insertion of data from another table into a created table, but from another table. So the first part is when we have the table created, and what we're doing is we're adding, we're inserting data into that table. So for the practice, I'm using, I've already written the DDL for to create a table. This table is called log. So I'm sure I've produced, or maybe I'll be producing a tutorial on how to create table. So don't get too worried with the creating the table part here. That's just something that has to be done before you insert the data. So I already have the table script written here. I'm creating a table called log, okay? And this table, I have student ID. That's the first field, and the type of this field is integer. The second one is username, and the type of this field username is character. The third one is email, and the type of the email is character as well. And the last two, the type of the field are date and timestamp. So first thing first, you should be able to insert data using the very basic syntax of insert into. So the way it works is you're going to use insert keyword into, and then you're going to specify the name of the table as I have here below. And then you're going to start with the values keyword, space, and then open parentheses, and then write your data in the parentheses. Each parentheses, from the time you open it until you close it, represents one record or one row. So from here, 1001, the first field, which is the student ID, move a little bit up, which is student ID. Sorry, I'm just move this down a little bit. Yeah, so the first field, which is student ID, we have 1001. That's our first record. And actually, let me go ahead and replicate it here. Maybe, maybe I can replicate, maybe I can add one more record here actually. So values, and then you can either put it on the same line for the first record, or you just press enter and start a new line. So I have three records, three rows of data for my log table, where you put the values first, and then either on the same line or insert and go to a new line, and then put uh, each line of record here. So for first line of record is 1001. The name is Abdullah, which is this one username. Third one is the email, which is the email here, and the fourth and fifth one are the date timestamp, the account creation date, and the last login date. So maybe I should go ahead, and you will see that maybe I should go ahead and create one more record, and you will see that as I will be starting a new record, I need to add the comma. So open parentheses, maybe this time I'm going to add 1011 maybe. And then the name could be, what could be a good name? Maybe my favorite name, Human. So human at education.edu. Don't forget to, and I'll talk about it in a second. Don't forget about the data type, but I'll come talk about it in a second. Education, and then the last three. Could be the date. So maybe the first one could be uh, 2026, 2026, 0, oops, sorry, 2026, 01, 01, and maybe the last one, which is the last login date. This could be the current timestamp. All right, so that's how it is. That's how simple it is to just insert into your table name, insert into your table name values, and then each line of your script, open parentheses, close parentheses, represents one record. There are a couple of rules points that I've written here that I want to mention. The first one is that when you insert your data in your created table, make sure that whatever you insert matches the value data type that you have already declared. So each of these values that you have here needs to match the data type that you have here. Okay. In fact, let me just delete this since I already have, since I already developed it, added one more row here. And also I need to get rid of not null here before I create a table. I will come back to this in a second. So the first point that I mentioned here, value data type. So make sure that the type of your of the value that you're inserting here matches the data typology that you've declared here. So integer, this is integer, so it matches the data type. This is character, matches the username data type. This is education, the email matches the email character data type. These two are dates, and it matches the timestamp data type here. So make sure that you keep that in mind. That was the first rule. Um, in fact, let me exemplify. Let me go ahead and run this. In fact, let me create the table first. Again, you need to have the table created before you insert your data. Simple as that. There you go. It's created now. And let me refresh my table schema to get it. There you go. Log is there. And when I open it, you're going to see that there is no data. It's all blank. So when we create a table, we're just creating the structure. We're just creating the structure, the bucket. And then what needs to be added to the table comes second, which is insertion. All right, let's go ahead and insert these data onto our log table which we just created. Successful. All right, so let's go ahead and check it out, which was uh, this table, and just refresh it. There you go. Maybe I should have kept it without. There you go. All those four records that we just inserted are now, I've now populated in our table. Let me get rid of these extra tables. Okay, so the first point to keep in mind was valid data type. So let's put that to test. Let's say Abdullah is compliant with our data type. Let's say we're going to change this to a boolean, right? And I'm going to do another insertion. You're going to see that we're going to run into the problem. All right, let me go ahead and um, delete the table. All right, perfect. So I'm going to change Abdullah to a number to violate the data type for the username, which is character. And you're going to see that we will run into a problem. There you go. It says that line 3, 1001 222 is syntax error near this, which means this value right here. The specification is not very clear, but as long as you know what line has a problem, you look at it, you should be able to understand where the problem is, what the problem is being caused by. And it's nothing but this violation of the data type here, which we did. So just go ahead and re-add that back in there. The second point is the order of inserted values. So make sure that when you insert your values, you keep the order. So you can't put, like, let's say the student ID at the end and expect that the student ID will be automatically inserted in its relevant field. That's not how it works. So the order of your values must match the order of your fields that have been declared in the DDL for your table creation. All right, and then constraints, not null for keys, etc. Okay, so constraint is something that you should really be mindful of. These are a couple of them that I wrote here. So when you insert data, make sure that you have also taken into consideration the constraints that exist. So a constraint could be a primary key. The constraint could be a foreign key in another table, foreign key reference in a different table. A constraint could be not null, right? So let's say if I make the email, right? So far we don't have any field with any constraint. Not with primary key, not nullifiable, not with foreign key, nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a not null here. A not null is pretty much saying that this email um, field, meaning this field, will need to be not nullifiable, meaning it cannot be left empty. It has to have data. So let me go ahead and actually delete the log that I created and recreate this new log table. And this time it's going to have the constraint. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. It's created. And go ahead and refresh it. There, the log is now created. So when you go to the table on your schema, on your database, and you click on constraint, and it's not showing it here for some reason. Maybe the one reason is that pgadmin is not, uh, you know, as as effective as it should be in comparison to other database management tools such as dbeaver. So in dbeaver, you can you should be you're able to look at the look at a lot of things like table properties. There's no table property here. There is, but it's not to the level for you to be able to look at, like, mappings. Look at the DDLs, although there are some, like for example here you can see the DDL for the log. What I mean by DDL is pretty much this that led to the creation of the table, right? Or by simply clicking on constraint in dbeaver, you should be able to see that column that has constraint. Either it's primary key, foreign key, any data validation, you should be able to see it there. So in here, I can't see it, so but it's okay. We know it because we already have it in our DDL SQL that this column email should be not nullable. Okay, so we now have the table created, and it's an empty table. So what we're going to do is I'm going to insert. In fact, and that brings me to the second topic, that when you do insert into log, into table, you specify the table and you don't pass any column name, any field name in the parentheses, then you're pretty much inserting or populating data for all the columns. So when you run this, you're populating data for all the columns, for all of these columns. But if you decide to only populate data for certain columns, right, which I'm about to show you now, like for example, if you want to only populate data for, let's say, um, student ID, okay, the first column right here, and username and email, right? Only for these three. And then let's say I'm going to delete these other because I already have three. And don't forget that each time that you're going to a new record and a new line, make sure that you use a comma. That's what separates each of your records that you're inserting. All right, so we have one constraint here, which is not that this email cannot be null. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave I'm going to leave one of these blank. Okay, and then I'm going to run this DDL. I'm going to run this insert statement. And there you go. It says insert has more target columns and expressions. So in other words, we cannot move forward because we have a constraint here. So let's say if we only had these two and we only have two columns here, and then we run this. So it's going to say that, uh, where is it? Filling row contains what does no, it call email relational violates not null constraint. Okay, so yeah. So when you try to add either specifying one or two columns or one column, because you already have a because you already have the email specified designated as a null, not nullifiable column, then you cannot add any data because you cannot add, uh, you cannot have the entire, even if you have the entire table populated with data, but if you ignore and violate the constraint that you have for email, you won't be able to add anything. In fact, let me do this. Let me get rid of the not null so I can create a table with zero and get rid of and delete the log table and create a table with zero with no constraint, right? And this time, let me go ahead and insert into these two columns and two records and run it. There you go. Now, when I open the log table, which is just created, you're going to see that everything else is null except for the two that I just added the data for. These two I just added the data for. Everything else is null. So it's good to go. Why? Because there's no constraint. There's no constraint. So I was able to populate data for two columns, for two fields, without any problem for these two fields, right? But because I didn't have no nulls, no constraints, it was easy. And the rest of the columns, these columns, email, account creation, time, date, stuff, they came as null. But if I have one, if I have one non-nullifiable data uh, field, then that is not going to allow me to insert any record because it doesn't matter if I insert one record or two records. I have to pass the email. So if I have one record and all of these other columns are full except for this one, I will still not be able to populate my record because it's null. So that's what I was trying to illustrate for you. Now, this time, let's go ahead and we delete our table. And this time, let's go ahead and create the null again. And we create the table. There you go. And let's say, run it again. I'm going to tell you that it fails because we are violating the not null constraint, which I just explained. So that was my second And that was my third point that you need to keep in mind, the constraints. So when you're inserting data, keep in mind, and not only inserting data, like updating data or doing any sort of like data manipulation, make sure that you fully understand your table model, your table relationship with other tables, the schema, uh, everything. That's important. And then also the serial columns, which are the incremental automatic incrementals, they can be ignored because they don't allow you to populate those records, or more like Nexus IDs that are populated as you create more records, as you populate records. Let's say if I had an ID here, uh, a serial ID, then that column ID will just populate as I will be opening new records. So that can be ignored. Um, I will be explaining more about the primary keys, the serial keys, the composite, all that stuff in a special video on DDLs. All right, so that was when you insert into a table using individual data point, which we just did in this case, right? So let me just go ahead and delete this. And let's go ahead and insert this into log. Something is wrong. Yeah, I'm missing that comma here when I deleted when I was testing the integer earlier. I deleted the comma, so that's good to go. All right, that takes care of our first point, which is inserting data and create table using individual insertion. Now let's jump to the second point, which is inserting data from another table. Okay, so we can insert data from another table. So for example, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and create this table first, and I'm also going to populate the data into it. You see, same as the log table, insert into student record values, and then each of these values are in their lines. You know, in here it's on the same line, doesn't matter, it could be in the same line or the second line, as long as you have the comma separating them. Insert those values, the records are inserted. You should be able to look at that right here, right here. Let me just move this a little bit up. Yeah. All right. So for records, okay. So about the rules regulations explained here, make sure that you have all of these in mind. But also make sure that the number of inserted values, that's important. So to be able to demonstrate that, let me go ahead and create a clone of the student record table. Okay, and I'm going to do that by saying creating a table. Maybe call this clone student clone clone record. Maybe I'm gonna call it clone record. Okay, and then select store, and then from student record. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a clone of the student record, which is created here. Okay, I'm going to check if the clone table for the student record has been created. Where is it? There you go. So there you go. It's been cloned. It's good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can insert data from insert data from one table to another table. First of all, I'm going to do it in this case where again I have two tables, the student record and the clone record. So in order to um, in order to let's say I'm going to delete from student record. I'm going to make this what did I do here? Student record. There you go. So the student record is now empty. There you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert data from the new clone record onto the student record. So the way it works is pretty much uh, just like the case of inserting values individually. And here you're following the same method, except that you will need to change your argument from between relationship between two tables. And what I mean by that is you say insert into, right, student record. That's the name of the table that you'll be inserting the data into. And then here we're going to say select everything from clone record. So remember, student record is empty. So what you're doing is you're inserting data from the clone record onto the student record. There you go, it's successful. And when you check the student record, all the data are there. So that was the idea for me to create a clone of the student record and then empty one of them out and then use the insert into to fetch the data back into it. Now it worked it was easy because the number of column between both student record and clone record and the data type, everything was similar because they were just clone of each other. But if you're dealing with multiple tables where the data types don't match or they're inconsistent number of columns, and that's what I mean here by saying the number of inserted values. If that's inconsistent, the number of columns and the number of values that you're bringing onto those columns, if there's an inconsistency in that, then you insert into the insertion will not be successful. And then something else with the column label is okay to ignore. So let's say I'm going to student record and clone record. They're two, again, they're cloning each other. But let's say go for the clone record. Let me go to the property here. Why can't I go to, okay, it's because I have this message. Okay, let me do this now. All right, there you go. We go to a property and columns. And so let's just change the student name to student only. Okay, and save it. And let's go ahead and check the clone record now. There you go. The name, the label is now changed. So now, this time, let's go ahead and delete and empty out the clone record. Okay, our clone record is now empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert into clone record this time, and the source is going to be student record. So what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to test this third point here that says column label is okay to ignore. That means, here's what it means. The name of the student column is student in clone record, but in the student record, it is student name. So there are two different names, but let's go ahead now insert them into clone record, although the name is different. It's still successful. So when you check the clone record more time, there's the clone record. You're going to see that all the data has now populated. There you go. Although the names are different. This is why it's important for you to keep in mind the number of columns, the data types, rather than worrying about the label. As long as those meet, you don't have to worry about the label. As we just tested and validated that although the name of the student name column, the student name column label was different between the clone table and the student record table, we still got the insertion successful while migrating onto the clone record. All right, and then lastly, let's do uh, let's do insert between two table. Maybe this time using condition, and this time I'm going to use the date maybe. Let's say each day that you come to work. Uh, so Sun Record has this time I'm going to each yeah. So I'm going to create a new table, right? And then what I'm going to do is each day that I come to work, I'm going to perform a query on the date, let's say on the last login date, and tell my query to give me all the login dates that are, equal to a given condition. So one more time, I have to deal with cloning. So let me go ahead and delete everything from clone record, making sure it's empty. It's empty now. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, I'm going to insert into clone record. Okay. And then I'm going to say select again everything from student record. And then I'm going to pass my where clause and say where now the date name is last login date. Let's say where the date is greater than uh, let's say uh, all these dates are 2023. So yeah, let me just put one of these maybe 505. Where is it? Okay, I'm going to change this to 505. All right, I'm going to run this. It says student record as long as the name as well. There you go. So what I did is I inserted into clone record from the student record, but I passed a where clause where I said only insert those records where the last login date is greater than May 5th, 2023. So now let's go ahead and look at the clone record. Refresh. There you go. The only data that we have is those that are greater than May 5th. So we have these three populated here now. So when you go to the actual data, see, May 3rd is not included. Abdul is not included, but John, Kareem, and Jimmy are included, as you can see here. John, Kareem, and Jimmy are included. Abdul is not included because because our where clause only specified these. So just as you learned with update and deleting, where you talk between two different tables, and then you update uh, data or you delete data based on given conditions, you can apply the same concept in insertion, where you can, while you're inserting data from a different table, uh, that you can specify that you're only looking for certain conditionalities to be met, and then for those data that meet those conditionality to be migrated over to the new table, as we just saw in the case of the date, where our conditionality is 555, and those street records that were brought over to clone record are those that are greater than 55, May 5, 2023. All right, so just a summary of what we learned. We learned how to insert um, data into created tables. We also touched upon DDLs on how to create tables and what data types are. We also learned about the importance of constraints and how that can play in while you're inserting data. into your table. We talked about, we also talked about, uh, we also cloned uh, the student record table where we have two tables, identical in terms of table structure. In one example, we inserted everything over. In the other example, we inserted everything over, not ever, we inserted some data over based on a given condition. We're done for this tutorial. Uh, as always, thank you so much for your time. I will look forward to seeing you guys in my next video.